Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. Each year, the European Parliament awards the Sakharov Prize to honour and support exceptional individuals and organisations who defend human rights, democracy and fundamental freedoms. This year's winners are opposition leader Maria Corina Machado and President-elect Edmundo González Urrutia, who for their exceptional efforts in Venezuela. Both recipients were forced to flee the country amid widespread repression after being arbitrarily prevented from taking their positions as president of that country. Additionally, the European Commission has announced an investigation into TikTok amid what it said were, quote, serious indications that foreign actors interfered in Romania's recent presidential elections using the social media platform. AI and social media are now a fact of all aspects of our lives, but they have been manipulated by bad actors to disrupt the democratic process. What can be done to counteract this threat? Well, to discuss this, I'm joined by Filip Konopczyński, AI and digital technology regulation expert, Polish Ministry of Digital Affairs. Mr. Konopczyński, welcome to TVP World. Thanks for taking the time. All right, so tell us a little bit about the Sakharov Prize and what it actually signifies as it relates to the use of AI and digital technology to undermine democracy in Venezuela.
Well, the Sakharov Prize, which has been given to outstanding, mainly opposition leaders from countries that have some troubles with democracy or are outright authoritarian, since 1988. And this year's award, I think it's signifies the shift, the technological and frankly social shift that we've been experiencing over the last years. Now, AI, which should be understood not only as technology that allows us to generate content or create deep fakes, but also maybe in a more mundane way as piece of technology that we deal every single day, affects all aspects of our life. And it's really crucial that when talking about the potential uses and misuses of AI as technology in disinformation for political purposes, we also have in mind that those very same technologies are being used for commercial or fraud or purposes that are related to fraud. So we see that technology is pretty much neutral, but it's always up to the people who have to decide in what way they're going to use it. And this year's prize with Ms. Machado and Mr. Urrutia being awarded this really significant, at least in the EU context, award, shows that this type of technology can be utilized both for democratic and anti-democratic purposes, because we know from what we learned about the Venezuelan government's approach to opposition as well as media, one of the types of disinformation and propaganda tactics employed to disenfranchise the majority of population was to create, well, deepfake journalists, supposedly foreign journalists. But on the other hand, the opposition and activists have been also employing these technologies to present the news due to the fear of being persecuted if their faces and their voices are being, the real faces and voices are being disclosed. So we see a really interesting landscape.
So AI-generated faces and voices presenting the news,
yes,
the actual news,
the actual news, which is banned by the government.
So if I'm a citizen of Venezuela and I'm listening to both of these, how do I know which is accurate and which is a fake?
And that's the scary part. First of all, we're not really sure because there's a lot of research on how algorithms work from this engineering perspective.
Right.
But when it comes to the impact of people, we seem to be always surprised. There isn't enough research, type of experimental research being done to see what kinds of people and what groups of people are being most prone to such tactics of disinformation. We're doing that in NASCA, a research institute supervised by the Ministry of Digital Affairs, but it's still preliminary work, and we need a mutual international collaboration to establish at least standards and norms of checking what is and what is not a foreign, for instance, interference.
Right, okay, so a number of questions. We're talking about international standards and norms. The challenge, of course, with that is that the technology moves so quickly. Surely the risk is that those standards and norms simply go out of date in 5 minutes.
Well, there are some legal methods of making regulation future-proof, and that's one of the aims of the European Union, which passed not only the commonly and widely discussed AI Act, but also DSA, the Digital Services Act, which is another good point for discussion, because we also had the situation in Romania quite recently.
Yeah. So tell me about the situation in Romania. How was it used, and what does Ursula von der Leyen mean when she says that there's an investigation going on into whether that act has been breached?
Well, again, to be completely honest, we still don't know the details, but there have been reports, both coming from the Romanian authorities as well as international community, that foreign actors, quite likely Russia, but we're not certain just yet, has been using a mix of methods, with real people being used as online trolls, with influencers who are being paid supposedly again. And of course, the platform that was the center of all of this operation was TikTok, which has its own problems, not only in the EU, in this case, in the Romanian presidential elections, but we're still waiting for President Trump's decision on the so-called TikTok ban, which is due. And within
only
a month
in America.
or two, only in America,
Right.
but the world is interconnected, so we should be expecting the European leaders also to take that into consideration. And what the EU did is, formally launch an investigation into the proceedings that led to the problems with the integrity of elections in Romania. And it is possible and lawful only because the European Union, the European Community, all the member states agreed to pass the Digital Service Act, which allows the European Commission to start a probe and get hold of the algorithms, because that's the real question and
that's
the real
the
mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the engine, and it's also, in normal circumstances, is protected by IP laws. So it's not like everybody can look into the precious algorithms of this or that. Usually global corporation.
But Philip, here's the thing. Once the algorithm has done its job during an election, it's too late, isn't it, to start a probe? Surely you want to be able to identify that this is happening before the election takes place. Is that possible?
Well, technically, possibly yes, but we're always on a fence. There is a question of freedom of speech, there is a question of media independence, there is a question of what should be done to prevent. Can all preventive measures be taken in order to stop a bad guy from committing a crime? It's something that should be discussed on the European level. And but the mechanism, if I can try to explain the rationale behind the Digital Services Act, is that we've got only so many global online platforms that allow for these kinds of campaigns. And if one is found to be guilty of committing or allowing certain crimes and other misdemeanors to take place in a regular way, well, they are liable both to civil and perhaps in some cases even penal measures. So we can fine a company, and by I mean the European Union.
Right.
And the fines that can be levied on such companies are quite high. So there are some measures to incentivize companies to take care of the
well, we see Google, we see Facebook. They've been fined a number of times for all sorts of I don't know how one would describe it, but misdemeanors. But there's a particular problem with TikTok, and that's widely used throughout Europe, including, of course, here. What is the problem, and how do we restrain that or constrain that platform's effect?
Well, it's a very difficult question. According to TikTok's representatives, TikTok is just another media company. But from what we know, and basically these are facts, undisputed facts, is that in China, the government...
So it's owned by the Chinese investors?
It has a control, so-called golden share, that allows the government to take final decisions. So in that case, even though formally it's independent from its Chinese counterpart, we all know that it's the Communist Party that has the final say in strategic decisions, at least. And that's where the problem is, because when it comes to TikTok, it's not just a question of following or not following European regulation. It's also a question of national security. And that's an issue not so much for the European Union, but for the member states. So if we are to discuss some potential scenarios, it would be the member states that would have to take a decision.
So talking about member states, we've only got a minute or so left. What are Poland's plans, or what's being discussed to address this particular challenge?
I wanted to I would just like to state I'm not a representative of the ministry or the government, but I'm pretty sure that people both in the ministry and in the agencies that are responsible for disinformation prevention are looking closely into what's happening on TikTok. So far, there haven't been the reports of massive disinformation campaigns, and very often TikTok representatives claim that they are not profiting from political ads, and that would be one way of avoiding the trouble. But if we see more and more countries, including the United States of America, take stronger action, I would expect governments, including European governments, to perhaps follow suit, but we don't know. There are still things that TikTok and its parent company can take, the steps they can take.
Yeah, so they may not be doing anything right now, but who knows what's going to happen in the future. The other concern, of course, very quickly, is data harvesting using the TikTok software. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. We can't get into that, but thank you very much indeed for sharing your expertise with our audience. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.
And that's all from us in this episode of World Talks. Goodbye.